Wow, I can't believe I finally get to make this video. I'm so excited to record this video. If you aren't aware about this channel, this has been the figure I've been wanting to add to my collection forever. Um, Ever since I got back into collecting dinosaurs, which is right around probably half a year now. No, probably over that actually. That I've been actually like collecting figures. But ever since I've got back in to collecting figures, this has been the top of my list. Um, so to finally have it and be able to, I think I was literally looking for this figure before I even made this channel. So this channel's been up for a good little bit now. And this is one of the figures that I've just been wanting to add for so long to my collection. It's easily was my favorite dinosaur I didn't have a figure of. I actually received this figure the day after recording the video of this figure, so technically this was my second Albertosaurus to add to my collection. And I couldn't be more excited to finally have it. So you all would have seen this, you all would have seen the individual figure review of this up on the channel the day I got this one. So because I recorded it a day before I uploaded it, but technically I had that figure a few days before because I also did that video just showing off the lot I received it in, and it was an early birthday present. And like I said, I just couldn't be more excited to get it. This one is a really good condition one. You can find them. So I think my mom got it for around $70-ish. Which is a little pricey, honestly, but you can find them for under $50 in a little bit worse condition. And this one was marked as perfect condition. There's a few minor scrapes and stuff, but for the most part, this one is in really good shape. So I'm so glad to finally have it. And I will mention really quick, and I said it was around $70-ish, and that's because this is one of the harder figures to get. In the Carnegie line, and just Safari figures in general, I found out, once figures get retired, some become really hard to get. Some of the older Carnegie figures are actually really easy to get, like the old green T-Rex. You can get some of the variants of it very easily, but this specific one and a bunch of others can be harder to get or pricier to get. But yeah, I'm just ecstatic to finally get it. And if you haven't seen my videos before, my reviews are actually less of a figure review and more of just talking about the animal in general. And then also a little bit about the figure, like if I see any major inaccuracies or just if I like the color, just stuff like that. But it's actually mainly just informing about the animal. So that's mainly what this video will be, like most of my figure review videos. But I didn't have to do much research actually for this video though, mainly because I just did a bunch of research for the video featuring this figure. And also just because with Albertosaurus being one of my favorite dinosaurs, I know a good bit about it already. So we're just going to get into some general Albertosaurus information. Albertosaurus was the apex predator of the Horseshoe Canyon Formation. It coexisted with some prey species it probably hunted, like Pachyrhinosaurus and Hippacrosaurus. And that is in Alberta, Canada, and that's kind of one of the reasons it has its name, Albertosaurus, Alberta, Canada. And Albertosaurus is one of the theropods with a really high chance of pack hunting, where it's really possible and plausible, due to the fact that of the dry island's bone bed, where multiple Albertosaurus, multiple ages were found together, and they didn't seem to be congregated for food or something, so there is a high chance that they were actually just a group together. And the fact that they were Tyrannosauridae members, which were some of the smarter dinosaurs, because in general, theropods and predators in general are usually smarter dinosaurs, and just based off the size of the brain, we believe Tyrannosaurus would have been some of the smarter theropods. And Albertosaurus was essentially a more gracile T-Rex. This is I do want to mention really quickly, this is a Carnegie T-Rex as well. And most of the Carnegie line is 140 scale, but this one's actually 135. So if you think that these two, if the T-Rex seems way too big, that's probably why. And I mean, T-Rex was a good little bit bigger, but not as big as you would think based off these two figures, because the Albertosaurus should be a little bit bigger compared to that T-Rex figure. And like I was saying, Albertosaurus is essentially a more gracile T-Rex, if you can't kind of tell by these figures. And gracile is just lighter built, so it was a smaller, more agile predator. And the other main difference is it has crest. but they were closely related, both being in the Tyrannosauridae family. But T-Rex was a Tyrannosauridae member, and Albertosaurus was an Albertosauridae member, with the dinosaur Gorgosaurus making up the Albertosauridae family. And in general, Albertosaurines were more gracile than Tyrannosaur members like Tyrannosauridae members like T-Rex, Tarbosaurus, and Daspletosaurus. But that doesn't 100% apply because like Alioramus is considered a Tyrannosauridae member, and it was probably more lightly built than Albertosaurus, but that's just one example. And Albertosaurus does actually have some controversy as a genus. The only 100% species in Albertosaurus is Sarcophagus, but it does have some other possible species. The genus Nanosaurus was once identified as Albertosaurus. Some fossils found in Mexico have been assigned to Albertosaurus. And they could end up being Albertosaurus, but they could end up being a completely different genus. Or just a different species of Albertosaurus, but I doubt it's Sarcophagus. But I mean, it could be Sarcophagus, but most likely not. And then also, to add to the controversy, even the Nanotyrannus was once considered to be like a dwarf species of Albertosaurus that lived in Hell Creek. But obviously, Nanotyrannus has all the controversy in the world on it. It's going to be the star of a future controversial case for me, so I'll explain that controversy more in that video. Because I'm going to have a whole video on that. I was going to say I could have a whole video about that, but I am going to have a whole video about that. And finally, back to Gorgosaurus. Gorgosaurus, being such a close relative of Albertosaurus, has caused some paleontologists to assign it as just a different species of Albertosaurus. And so this is kind of how this works. If paleontologists decide to just change, if they believe a genus is no longer valid and should just be clumped into one genus, it would separate the species though. But whichever was named first would keep the name. So we would lose the genus Gorgosaurus, and it would become Albertosaurus libratus. It's Libratus. I'm not for sure exactly how you pronounce it, but it's Albertosaurus libratus is what it would be considered. But right now the genus is more considered Gorgosaurus libratus. And I currently don't have a set opinion on this. I think I am going to have a controversial cases in the future over the matter, but I currently will continue to call it its own genus. But with them being so closely related and living in similar locations, it is even possible Albertosaurus directly descended from Gorgosaurus. And just this is an example of like genuses being leopards, lions, tigers, and jaguars are all considered the same genus. So it wouldn't shock me at all if technically Albertosaurus and Gorgosaurus are the same genus because their proportions are very similar. Gorgosaurus has I think is the less gracile of the two, but has even more exaggerated crest. And, that would make sense. Albertus or Gorgosaurus did compete with Daspletosaurus, and it's possibly it just descended, like Gorgosaurus evolved into Albertosaurus and became even more gracile to outcompete Daspletosaurus. But that's just a complete hypothetical hypothesis. But and now we're just mainly going to get into the figure itself. I overall really love this figure. There are no major inaccuracies that I can see, which is impressive for a figure all the way from 2003, literally the year I was born. But with it being a Carnegie model, I'm not surprised. Most of the Carnegie models are really, really good and still hold up very well, even for figures as old as this one that's almost 20 years old now. Wow. And this figure is a common dinosaur color, being mainly gray with a black top and stripes and white underbelly, kind of similar to like a great white shark, but its duller color scheme pairs very well with the vibrant color of the updated Safari model. I think these two look really well together, actually. And it has less exaggerated crest than this one. And I actually think that those two factors together work great with these two, because what I'm considering is that these are a sexually dimorphic pair, and with the male having brighter colors and more exaggerated crest, I think that is super plausible. And one thing I did say about this figure specifically, and this doesn't apply to the Carnegie model, but I do think it is plausible that Albertosaurus could have crazy vibrant colors just because, it was probably faster than most of its prey. Uh, if you're faster than most of your prey, having a bright color scheme wouldn't matter as much. I explained that more in that video, and I'll put a link to that in the description, but I do think it is plausible to have that bright of a color scheme. But I would say it's probably more likely that one is the color scheme. The Carnegie's more accurate, most likely. But I think both are plausible. But, if they are a sexually dimorphic pair, if this is what actually happened in nature, it wouldn't be completely out of the realm of possibility because multiple birds are like this. Cardinals, the male is a bright red while the female is a duller brown. And in the mallard duck, the males are way more vibrant than the females. But, those aren't the top predator species, so there's not as many predator species besides something like a lion where the male has a large mane, but that's, very different than a color scheme, and mammals are completely different than, like, reptiles and birds, so I think it is plausible, them being a sexually dimorphic pair, and that's why I like them together so much, but I understand why some people wouldn't be crazy about that. But I do love the pairing of these figures so much. I completely reorganized my shelf so that they would be beside each other, which I might show off for the 50 subscriber special. Mention about the... And okay, I want to mention this. These figures are pretty similar in size. Like, I think that they could be, like, actual size pair, but if this one is the male would be bigger out of these two. And I know a bunch of people speculated the female theropods would be bigger, or female dinosaurs in general would be bigger. But, I think it is possible because I would assume that in the species, the males and the females were similar in size. And, this could be just a really mature male or a larger male specimen. And this could be just a smaller female or a younger female. So I am considering the Carnegie a female, and mainly just due to the crest and the color. And overall, like I said, I really like this figure. And one thing I did want to mention about this figure, I have seen a few slightly different color variants for this figure. I have seen some that are a more solid gray color, and then I've also seen some with a, like the one I have, that's gray with a few black stripes and a black top. I actually prefer the one I got just because I like any animal, especially predator animals that have stripes. I just think it looks really awesome. I'll try to get this in zoom so y'all can see what it says on the bottom. But overall, like I was saying, this one is in really good condition. There's only a few spots I can see that would make you think it wasn't perfect condition, but it is really good condition. And like I said, they paid $70-ish for this one. So if you can get one for under $50 and you like this figure, I would recommend getting it. And on this figure, I think they possibly could have went with feathers, but that's more for the updated figure. And the reason why is feathers on larger theropods was kind of more speculated until the discovery of Utyrannus. And Utyrannus was discovered in 2012, and this model was made in 2003, or it was based off the 2003 model. So I don't discredit them at all for not having feathers, but I do think feathers are plausible for Albertosaurus since Utyrannus and the fact that it lived in a colder climate. But since Utyrannus wasn't found at that time, I don't consider it a knock at all for this figure. But I wouldn't have been shocked if they did feathers on this figure. But for the Carnegie model, being a 2003 model, I definitely wouldn't discredit them for not doing feathers. Because, there's a good chance Albertosaurus didn't even have feathers. But I do have to mention one other figure. The Safari Ltd Carnegie Collection Sinraptor. These figures have some of the most similar molds I have ever seen in figures. And they both have 2003 Carnegie. I'm not sure if they were actually both 2003. I know the Sinraptor was either a year before or a year after this model. I've actually had the Sinraptor for a while. My Sinraptor is not in the best condition, but it is in pretty good condition. It's kind of warped on the feet, but it still stands. But both are in a very similar pose. The only major differences in their pose is one has the other foot in the front and the other has the other foot in the back. And they both have the bend in the tail. And one just has the different arm up and the other has the head in a slightly different turn. And they're both basic dinosaur colors, gray and brown. Very similar molds, kind of lazy, I'll admit, but I like both the figures. Um, oh, and I did want to mention one other thing about these two figures that I love having these. I know I said that Albertosaurus might have just chased down prey, and that's why this color scheme was possibly plausible because uh, if it's faster than most of its prey, it would have been fine to be bright, vibrant colors. But one thing I really like with these two figures is saying that this one is like making noise, hurting some sort of prey species. We'll use the Pachyrhinosaurus in this situation, like scaring the Pachyrhinosaurus right into an ambush by the female. I think that looks really good as a diorama. Having, this being the male just scaring this Pachyrhinosaurus right into the female, I think looks really well together. Especially with this pose on this one being like, it doesn't look like a super aggressive mouth open pose, but it looks like it definitely could be like just making a noise trying to scare some sort of prey species right into the female. And now we're going to go into some featured documentaries for Albertosaurus. First up, we have Prehistoric Park. Prehistoric Park actually portrays Albertosaurus in a more southern location than Alberta, and it portrays it with Deinosuchus and Parasaurolophus. And if the Mexican species does end up being, or the Mexican specimen does end up being Albertosaurus sarcophagus or Albertosaurus, it would be possible, but I think it would have been better if they just used a different theropod instead of Albertosaurus in the documentary. I love Albertosaurus, though, so I'm not upset at all that they put Albertosaurus in it, but they probably should have used a different theropod or kept Albertosaurus and just did something other than Deinosuchus, just because I don't believe there's any fossil evidence other than the possible Albertosaurus specimen to show. But, that was a while ago, so I'm not really going to discredit them much for having Albertosaurus in that documentary. And then March of the Dinosaurs, which I haven't seen yet. And then there's Jurassic Fight Club. Jurassic Fight Club is obviously Jurassic Fight Club. And, it has Albertosaurus fighting Pachyrhinosaurus, which I do like, but it is, it's Jurassic Fight Club. It has its issues. And for a dinosaur as popular as Albertosaurus, I'm honestly surprised it doesn't have more figures. Has been featured in multiple documentaries, like I said, and it's almost like Canada's T-Rex. But the only figures I can really think of that are out are the two safaris that I have, and the upcoming Beast of the Mesozoic. And I would love to get that figure in the future, but it is a little pricey. I do think it's worth the price, but it's still a pricey figure. And I didn't want to make so many comps to T-Rex in this video, but I kind of do want to make one more big comp to T-Rex. And I do think I don't love it whenever everything compares everything to T-Rex. Like, whenever a new dinosaur is discovered, how they all, like Meraxes gigas, for example, was compared to T-Rex so many times, like, for its size. But being an animal is closely related to Albertosaurus, I think it is fine to make as many comparisons as I have. But I do want to quickly explain why I do prefer Albertosaurus to T-Rex. For one, I prefer the crest. I just really like the crest on Albertosaurus. And T-Rex could have crest, but they probably wouldn't have been less exaggerated than Albertosaurus. Also, I like it being more gracile. I think I, in general, prefer more gracile and agile animals in general, just because I'm a more gracile person physically. And just the fact that it is less popular. I usually prefer the less popular animals. I notice this, I tend to like, in general, things that are popular, but not the most popular. Like, I prefer Albertosaurus and Allosaurus to T-Rex. So, they're two of the they're not crazy unpopular dinosaurs, but they're not near as popular as T-Rex. And in the process of recording this video, I came up with many cool content ideas that I honestly have trouble deciding which I should upload first, which in my opinion is a really good problem to have. And also, this is the second time I've recorded this video because I thought it seemed a little sloppy at first, and with the importance of this video, I wanted to make it as good as possible. Like I said, this has been the figure I wanted to add to my collection for so long, so I wanted this video to be as good as possible. And originally, I was going to record this the day after I recorded this updated Safari Albertosaurus, but I figured it would be better to wait a little bit and kind of decide to make it a 50 subscriber special. But then I changed my mind because I just wanted to make this video because I was so excited to record this video. And after getting this figure, though, I do still have some other things I really want to get. I do want to get a PNSO figure, a Beast of the Mesozoic figure, and two specific dinosaurs I really want to get. I want to get a Mapusaurus figure, which does have some figures out. Collect Day, I know, has some figures, and a Nanosaurus figure, which I'm not aware of has any figures made, at least not by any of the bigger companies like Safari, PNSO, Collect Day. And if I'm sure I mentioned this, but this is the Carnegie Collection model, and the updated one is just in the regular Safari line. And I have ordered some other awesome dinosaur stuff to review, but I think I will hold off on reviewing that stuff until I review the other Safari figures I ordered in the Albertosaurus lot video. And most of the videos I mentioned in that video, like the upcoming videos, I meant to say, most of those videos I will be recording in the future, but I will put a link in the description to that Albertosaurus individual review where you can kind of find the other video too. But one of the figures I ordered is a figure that was probably actually my second most wanted figure behind the Albertosaurus, but a decent margin behind. Like, this was easily the top dinosaur I wanted, but this actually was probably second, but it was a good ways behind. And the figure represents a genus so closely related to Albertosaurus that some paleontologists think it is just a separate species of Albertosaurus. So you can probably guess what it is, because I already mentioned that earlier in the video. And that figure was in a lot only of two figures, so whenever I receive that figure, I will show them off as like a lot video, but I might wait to review them individually. But the main figures in that lot, it was a really good condition figure, so I was super glad to get it for the price I did. I honestly think I should have a higher eBay max bid, because somebody did try to snipe me last second, and I would have been really disappointed if they got it for just a little bit more than I had my max bid, because I think I should have really had a max bid $10 or $20 more than I had it, but luckily I ended up getting the deal. So I'm super glad to add those figures. And adding this figure to the collection, I think, is less of an end for this channel and more of a beginning. Well, less for this channel and for my collection. Although it was a journey trying to get this figure from unsuccessful eBay auctions to Safari announcing a new Albertosaurus, the highs and lows like a roller coaster, but I'm so glad to finally have this figure in my collection, and would definitely recommend getting it if you would like an awesome Albertosaurus for your collection. And on this journey of trying to add this amazing figure to my collection, Albertosaurus has probably taken the position of my favorite dinosaur. It had always been a dinosaur I really liked, but I think the lack of owning a figure of it made it incapable of being my favorite dinosaur. But after adding it to my collection, it and Allosaurus have probably become top two for me. And once again, I do want to reiterate two things. I'm so glad to finally have this figure in my collection, and it just feels amazing to finally have this figure and have it paired together with this one to make a sexually dimorphic pair, which I think looks so well together. And like I said, I reorganized my whole shelf for these two to be beside each other, and I think whenever I think my 50 subscriber special is actually going to be a video showing off the reorganized collection, because I know I just recently did that, but it's so different now that I think it would be fine to make it the 50 subscriber special, so I hope we get there soon. And now I guess we'll go into the featured figures section. So first off, for the featured figure section, here we have it with some of its Horseshoe Canyon formation, fellow dinosaurs. Obviously, Albertosaurus itself. This is the updated new Safari Limited or Safari Ltd Albertosaurus, which you can get on their website. Which that's the one I have a whole separate video for, and I have the link to that figure in that video, I believe. And obviously, this is the updated new Carnegie one, which is a little harder to find, and I would definitely recommend getting it if you like it. And if you can get these two together, I think you should definitely do it. And then we have the baby Hipparchosaurus. That's actually a really hard one to get now. This is the Pterobibitat Pachyrhinosaurus. This is the super close relative, which we might have got a new figure of, Gorgosaurus. And that's from the Walking with Dinosaurs movie, one of the mini blind bag figures. This is a Safari Ltd Utyrannus. This is the Safari Ltd Dinodana Nanotyrannus. This is the Safari Ltd Carnegie Collection Sinraptor with a really similar mold. And this is the Safari Ltd Carnegie Collection T-Rex. The Carnegie Collection had multiple Tyrannosaurs, but I do think that is one of the better ones they made. And this is the Safari Ltd Carnegie Collection Deinosuchus. And overall, like I said, I had a ton of fun making this video, and I do want to thank everyone for watching this. And if you would subscribe to the channel or like this video, it would be greatly appreciated. And you don't have to, but if you would, I would really appreciate it. And it would be super awesome because more people could see this video, and it would be greatly appreciated by me, obviously. Because I would love for this channel to get to the point where I can either make money off it just to straight up buy figures, or just get to the point where companies send me figures to review, which would be crazy and awesome. Because I know a bunch of people, got sent Safari, the newer figures sent to them to review, and I would love to get to the point where I can get to review figures on the channel just sent by like companies. I think that would be so awesome. Getting to review figures early would be so cool. And now I'll just kind of re-show here at the end. I'll just show off some more angles of this figure. And I think we'll make this the end. So like I said, thank you all so much for watching. And I'm so glad to finally have this figure in my collection.